option. Oh, there you
Okay.
go.
Yeah, I
just did it.
thank you. Thanks, Jayun. So if you were scheduled for a face-to-face course program, those are going to be held face-to-face. Just realize that faculty, again, are not going to be able to utilize any endpoint technology. So if there's a computer in a classroom, they're not going to be able to utilize that. So you'll want to come to classes on Monday if you're in face-to-face with technology, your phone, something that you could access, BlazeView, if there are, the syllabi that you're going to talk through or other handouts in BlazeView, it's going to not necessarily be possible for faculty to show those documents and those resources on the screen behind them. But again, those things are coming and classes are gonna happen as planned outside of that. Any questions about technology, accessibility, things that you're struggling with? We want to make sure that any questions that come up in terms of pain points that we address, we're learning more and more all the time. Certainly, as we open up a new avenue, we're hearing some things, so we're giving constant feedback to our IT folks. And so anything that you're running into, feel free to put it in the chat. Oh, the Microsoft authentication. I'll forward that on, Sarah, that if you have a new number, it's causing some issues. I'll let them know that. My VSU is still down, but through the banner, I think there was a recent email from Robin Despain that came through with the access point to pay tuition and things like that. But please know that there's going to be flexibility. We're requesting from the USG a delay in the payment deadlines and things like that. So financial aid questions are coming up. I was in contact with our director of financial aid this afternoon, Doug Tanner, and there is the direct link to their website. They are processing financial aid awards as we speak. They got access to that. I want to say he said this afternoon or maybe earlier this morning. And so they are working to process financial aid. Again, we're requesting delay, a slight delay. So all of that can be done in a timely manner. Awards are going to be notified. All awards you will find out about. He said you're going to be emailed to your VSU email, your personal email, and a text message will come out to you. So they're trying every way to make sure that you're notified and aware of that. You might have issues accessing your email if your password was not reset before the system shut down. But as of this afternoon, the I forgot my password has been opened up. So you should be able to do that. I'm going to take names of folks who are commenting in the chat of issues that you're having to get more information over to you. Thanks, Megan, for sharing the financial aid email address. Because they've been getting a lot of questions, it's probably taking a little time. If you've emailed and haven't heard back, they're trying to work through all of the emails as well as do the processing. So be assured that they will be back in touch with you if you haven't heard from them just yet. I don't know that I've seen all the questions that came through the chat. If I've missed any, let me know, but I'll go back through too and make sure. Course syllabi, you should be able to access in BlazeView. Faculty should be uploading them into BlazeView. Typically, students have access to their BlazeView course shell on the first day of classes. So if you're not seeing anything yet, am I saying that right, Chris, Dr. Downing, Dr. Ruttengutter? Okay. So if you're not seeing those there yet, midnight, the night before, or 12:01 a.m. the day of classes. Okay. So if you're not seeing that just yet, that'll happen the day of your class when it starts, your access, and that should be there.
Additional information regarding that, some students haven't been able to register due to the outage, and those students won't be able to access Blazeview until their registration is fixed. So I have a bunch of those students, and I've communicated with the instructors to share their syllabus through emails. Yes.
Great. That's very helpful. That's very helpful.
Yeah.
Yes, we are currently working on lists of students who need to get registered for classes or needing to switch classes and overrides. So those kinds of things are happening even today, but certainly tomorrow. If you're finding that, please communicate with your advisor. The deans are sharing that with the provost, so that can be shared up with advising team to get those registration fixes made.
Right, because I think, far as I know, on our end, for registration, officially you won't be registered, but we just try to get you enrolled in Blazeview so you can participate in the course. And once things get back up and running, then we can officially enroll you in the course.
Ashley, I'm sorry, go ahead, Dr. Jung.
Chris, just one more information regarding that. If you're new to VSU and then you haven't even, registered to any of the courses before, Blazeview won't recognize you. So you won't be, instructors won't be able to add the students manually to Blazeview courses because Blazeview don't know them. So that was another issue I have confronted. So like external email sending was the best solution for the first week to be just on the safer side. But that requires a lot of coordination from the instructor and the advisor for communication.
Oh, thanks for sharing that.
That's good information.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dr. Jung. And there is flexibility. The faculty are in the same boat. They're understanding these challenges and they're working with students. And so there's certainly flexibility that will happen. And we're trying to work. We are working through those issues. And I'll be taking notes of the things and challenges that you're noting in the chat. And I will be moving those forward to our IT folks to see what kind of workarounds and things that we can do while the systems are coming back up. I see a question. Are advisors currently open and available to face-to-face scheduling advising during this outage period? In all honesty, faculty are being discouraged from being in their offices because they can't be working on their desktop computers. We have a company who is scanning all of our systems to find out where the contamination has happened. And until that happens, faculty and staff cannot be on their computers. So really right now, at least at the moment, the best way to get in contact with advisors for help there is to reach out to your program coordinators or otherwise assigned advisors in your graduate programs. And then we're working with them through our advising center for registration and things like that for all students. So right now we don't see a lot of folks on campus for face-to-face advising. That hopefully will be changing very early next week when we have wireless restored and our endpoints cleared. I do want to make sure that we have a lot of time. We've got student panelists here to answer questions as well. I'm going to stay online and as well for any of these kinds of technology questions. But I did want to mention some of the resources the graduate school offers as well, just to plant seeds as you're moving through your graduate programs. One of the things I mentioned to grad students as they're starting is that there are resources from the graduate school to help you with your research and presenting research that you might do in your programs. So one thing that we have is our graduate student research symposium that we host every spring semester. This coming spring, it is April 11th. It's always on a Friday, late afternoon. And if you, or once you have research that is developed to the point to present, we love to hear what you're doing. We love to see all of the fantastic research that you're doing with your faculty. So plan on presenting research. We have various formats of that presentation. It can be a poster session. We've got the 3-minute thesis. Starting this year, we're also going to have oral presentations of research. So we're really looking forward to that. The other aspect of presenting research, you might want to present it off campus at a conference. And the graduate school does have some funding to assist in your travel. So there are applications on our website that you can apply for up to $500 from graduate school funding, and the SGA, Student Government Association, you can apply for up to $300, and you can use that together. So a total of $800 to go to a conference to present your research. So food for thought for down the road. Graduate assistantships and other ways of helping folks cover the cost of graduate education. We do have graduate assistantships, mostly for students who are on campus. But if that's something that's interesting to you, there's more information about that on our website, and I'm always happy to answer questions about that as well. We also recently added scholarships to our scholarship universe, which is for grad students. There are a few specific scholarships for grad students on Scholarship Universe, which is on our financial aid website. Feel free to check that out and see if there are any that might apply for you and your programs. There's more coming all the time. It also looks for external scholarships for graduate students, so it's worthwhile taking a look at there. There are also writing resources for graduate students. So our Academic Success Center has tutors that may be very helpful. If you're a little nervous about submitting a writing assignment and you want to just get some feedback, you can make an appointment at our Academic Success Center, which you can find online. That's fully remote resource that helps students, whether you're in a face-to-face or an online program. Please do also check out our website, the graduate school website. We have a box just for resources for grad students that has all the information that we're talking about this evening, a lot of that anyway, as well as information about the graduate catalog, policies, forms, etc. I do want to mention just briefly, just so you're aware of this down the road, to maintain academic standing in a graduate program, you want to aim for B's or better. We do have deficiency points that are assessed for graduate students. So any C's or below, there are deficiency points, and you could hear from the graduate school about a deficiency point or points. We have 1 deficiency points for C's, and 2 deficiency points are assessed for D's, F's, or unsatisfactory grades. And I only mention that because we hear from students that they were unaware of that. So there's more about that if you are concerned. I know you are all really good students, so it's probably not going to apply to you, but there's more information about that on our website and in the graduate catalog. Outside of that, there are ways of getting involved as a graduate student. We have the Association of Graduate Students, or the acronym is AGS, and we've got AGS officers. I'm not sure if we've got any AGS officers here this evening, but the information about them and the events that they host and the meetings that they offer each month are on our website also. And we do have up to 5 positions for graduate students, specific for graduate students on SGA, to participate in efforts there. So I just wanted to share those with you briefly, and I'm going to pass it back over to Chris to go back into our program and our panelists. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you so much, Dr. De Cruz. We really appreciated that. So moving on, we're going into our Q&A portion of this session. So please come with questions. So we have our panelists just going to introduce themselves in a few. So we developed the Q&A panel because we had a lot of first year or returning grad students come to VSU, and some were stressed, nervous, didn't know how to take the first semester. So pretty much this Q&A session is just a question for you to get rid of those fears, that anxiety, that stress. And it's an interactive. So please, you're welcome to ask any question, because I know some people are scared to ask questions, but you're not the only one that have that question in mind. So please ask questions. Our panelists are here that answer those questions and would love to answer your questions. So we'll start off just introducing our panelists, starting with Megan, because I've seen a cute cat.
I know I had to go put the cat away. He was like into this meeting. He wanted to be here. My name is Megan Kemp. I'm an MLIS student here. I'm in my final semester, which is wild. I feel like I was just where you guys are now, like a second ago, and also 1,000 years ago, both. And I really, my heart goes out to you, because I know when I was starting, I had so much anxiety coming back to school that I was like, on the computer trying to access everything, trying to make sure everything was ready to go. And I know that this situation is frustrating, and I'm sure is adding to anxiety, but I promise that like VSU has always been amazing, overcoming any challenges, any obstacles. And I have like complete faith that all of this stuff is going to smooth out, and it's going to be an amazing journey for you, just like it was for me. And I'm a youth services librarian here in Chatham, Massachusetts. I don't know if I should share anything else. Sorry, that was a lot.
Oh, no, you're fine. All right, who wants to go next? I don't see everybody on my screen, sorry. Emily, you want to go next? Let me see.
Maybe Gracie.
Gracie.
There we go.
Hello, my name is Gracie Robertson. Even though it says Skylar Morris, I'm Gracie. I am in the biology program. I got my undergrad from VSU in biology and just continued on to my master's.
All right. Thank you. Elizabeth?
Come on. Oh, no. Okay. Is it working? Please.
Yes.
Okay. I'm Elizabeth Maxwell. I am over in the doctoral program for adult education and leadership, and I'm in my second semester of doctoral studies. I'm in New York and it's freezing up here, so I apologize for looking cold, but it is really cold. It's been like hovering around 3 degrees with the wind chill, and I see you shaking your head, so you get it.
Now, with this home in Virginia, and we got snow, so we're not that low, but we're down to about 15, 20. And I think that's all the panelists. Anybody else I forget?
My name is Georgia Wynn, and I'm the AGS president.
Yes.
No, it's okay. I'm an English master's student. I'm in my final semester too, like Megan. And I got my undergraduate degree from VSU as well. And yeah, I was a former tutor, so used the Academic Support Center as much as possible. Thank you.
Okay. Hey, Chris, our other panelist, our fourth panelist is Annalisa, and she's here.
Oh, Annalisa. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about
I'm
that,
Annalisa. My computer's being wonky. So I am actually a full-time staff member at Valdosta State as well. I'm the director of campus recreation. So I get the fun job of playing until things get serious, such as what we're dealing with now. So I am in the higher education program. I was kind of thrust into it, but I have loved every minute of it. So I'm kind of the non-traditional graduate student by all means. But I've loved every minute of it. I'm a Valdosta local, Valdosta State through and through, bleed red and black with everything that I've ever done. So getting the degree from here has just been a tremendous help. Faculty and staff is great. Being a full-time staff has really given me a different perspective with working with the faculty side of the house and just doing things. And then I also actually teach undergraduate classes. So I literally just get to touch all sorts of parts of BSU, but I love it and it's great.
Thank you, Annalise. I appreciate that. Okay, so again, this is the Q&A portion, and please, everybody participate, but I'll start off with one of my questions. So I know I'm non-traditional, went back to school, so everybody here, I know you kind of had the same stress that I had when I was going to school. So for our panelists, what are some misconceptions you had about graduate school?
Should I go first?
Hey,
or who
Anybody can go first.
Excuse me, just 1 second there, Megan. Thank you so much for your eagerness. Hey, Chris, I think it's probably going to work well if you call
Just
folks
call
out
them.
by name
Okay.
and then rotate each question. That's how Dave has led us previously. It's
Okay.
effective.
Okay. No, okay, I didn't want to put people on the spot, but gotcha. Okay, Megan. And now I'll rotate backwards next time.
Okay. Yeah, sorry guys. I had a kiddo today say, "Why do you talk so fast?" I was like, "That's a good question. I don't know. It's so exciting. Everything is, and it just wants to come right out. So if I'm going too fast, just like I told the student, say, slow down, slow down." Because the other panelists did such a good job introducing themselves, I'm going to go back a little bit too and tell you that I came to graduate school. I'd been out of college for a very long time. I graduated with my English degree. And so I think it was about 15, 20 years, something like that, since I had been in school. So it's also been a non-traditional kind of path for me as well. I have 2 kids, one on the autism spectrum, and I work full time. So I'm a part-time graduate student. And so that's anything that I talk about, that's sort of in reference to that path and that experience. But I will say, if I can do it, then I think you guys can do it. You got this. The misconceptions I had was that I couldn't do it. That was my misconception. I was so, I wasn't sure how I was going to integrate it into my life, but I knew it was important to provide the best kind of library services to my community, to have this knowledge and these research sources and these tools. And so I was brave and I started it. And it felt kind of like a hoop I was jumping through. And that is the other misconception, is that this was going to be just an entirely sort of theoretical academic experience that wouldn't necessarily provide me with daily practice tools and knowledge right away. But from day one, there's been information, skills, resources that have immediately applied back to my work that I'm doing. So I think that those were my major misconceptions. I'm interested to hear what the other panelists have to say.
Gracie?
Yeah, so for me, my biggest misconception is that since this is a graduate degree, it's an upper level degree, that all of my colleagues would have everything figured out and I would be the only one trying to navigate my way through the program. I definitely felt that way during my first semester, that I thought all of my classmates, they have everything figured out, they know what their project is, they know what the thesis is. After talking to some of my classmates, I realized they're trying to figure it out too. That they don't have everything together, they don't have their life together either, and that it's okay to, try and navigate the program.
Okay, Elizabeth?
So, like Megan, I took the educational journey a lot later too. I did a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in 3 years through an online program in New York State, and I started it before COVID actually hit. And I had 2 kids at home, one who was receiving early intervention childhood education programming. That was just a joy over telehealth, and another child who was in UPK but going into kindergarten in the fall, and it was all remote because being in New York, it was a much higher caseload at the time than it was in other places. And so we weren't fully back into everything except for like 2 days a week for hybrid, but there were other reasons. And so one of my biggest misconceptions, like everybody else, was, like I had imposter syndrome, especially for this degree, for the doctoral degree. And I think that, that's probably one of the biggest things we all come into this program with. But if you're here, you're meant to be here. This journey was for you to take, and it doesn't have a time frame on when it has to be completed. The destination is just for you to get there.
Georgia.
Hi, thank you. I think for me, it was difficult, like transitioning from undergrad to grad, because I didn't know exactly what opportunities for things outside of like the classroom were going to look like. And so I was very happily surprised when I found out there were opportunities that, just like in undergrad, because I was involved with the Honor Student Association and other spaces like that. And I wanted to find other outlets where I could connect with people. And that's the great thing about AGS too, is you get to connect with other graduate students from different fields than you, which is really nice and refreshing. So I'd say, the opportunities that I've come upon during graduate school have really been awesome and surprised me in a good way. Yeah, thank you.
No problem. And Elisa.
For me, I would just say the time management that was going to go into it, especially with working full time. I wasn't really sure how that was going to work out, and just trying to figure out what worked for me and figuring out that what worked for somebody else didn't work for me, and finding what works for you. And just because the first thing that doesn't work for you, don't give up, continue until you find what does work, because like somebody else already said, you're here for a reason. So figure out what that reason is and find a way to make it happen.
Okay. I would like to turn it over to the floor again, like to be a little interactive. So anybody have any questions? Again, put in the chat or just ask. So anybody with any questions? Go ahead.
I have a question. Hi there. My question is, what do you recommend taking like the maximum as a online grad student? Like how many credits would you say is advisable, especially as also not having been in school for 10 years plus, and it's a MLIS course. So what is that, 39 units? Like what would you recommend so as to like, yeah, what would you do?
Oh, great question. And Lisa, you want to start us off?
So for me, I don't really know if I'm the best one to answer that, because I was told exactly how many I could take with being a full-time worker. So I'm only taking 2 classes every semester, but there's some other people that take more. So I think it's just knowing your limits and having that real conversation within yourself and with your advisor to see exactly what time you have. And your advisor is going to know how much time it's going to take. They're there for a reason. So just kind of talk to them, be honest. Don't fool yourself into thinking you have more time than you do to work on it. Be realistic. You'd rather start slow and pick up speed than go full force and then get gassed and quit. So my advice would be just talk to the people around you and figure out what's the best path for you, because there's definitely one.
Georgia.
I definitely would talk to advisors when making those kind of decisions, because what works for one person might be different from another, and what works for one program might be different from another. Because in my program, I have to teach, and so I teach, and then I'm editing a book, and then I'm taking one class this semester, and then I'm doing another thing I can't remember off the top of my head. So I've got several things that I've got to do within my program that are different than just my class. So I would just advise you to talk to some of your mentors or your advisor and some of your classmates and kind of figure out what works for you.
Elizabeth?
In my experience, I mean, obviously talking to your advisor is your best bet, but it's also where your comfort zone is. 6 credits is really comfortable with the workload. especially with some of the assignments, is they get heavier throughout the semester. So, you know, like you're going to start out with some assignments that don't seem very, very hard. And you'll be like, okay, this is a cakewalk if you have 3 classes. But then as it progresses, you know, like there's going to be a curve where, you know, things are more challenging and the rigors are greater for, you know, the grading rubrics. And as a graduate assistant, um, and doing work with 3 classes over in teacher education, and I do have a remote position, one of the few that exist at Valdosta. Um, you know, I've seen students, you know, drop out of the master's program where, you know, all of a sudden you just don't see the work coming in and you're curious, but you keep going along because you too are working on your program as well.
And Gracie.
Yeah, just to kind of reiterate basically what everyone else has said, talk to your advisor, talk to your fellow classmates, see what they're doing. Like with what Elizabeth said, see what you're comfortable with. For me, it's between, you know, 6 and 8 credit hours, is about 2 or 3 classes. You know, it's different for each program. So just talk to those in your program and they can help give you a good idea.
And Megan.
Specific to the MLIS program, my first semester, I just took the one class, 7,000, because it is kind of a big lift. And I mean, I know a lot of my classmates were taking other classes at the same time, and that was totally fine for them. For me, just re-entering, it was a way to sort of have enough space to figure out what works for me and what doesn't work for me, and how much energy I could put towards things. The rest of the semesters I've taken 2 classes because that's how I can get financial aid, is by taking, you have to take a minimum, I think, of 2, or I think 6 credits, which I'm sure is different for different programs, but in MLIS, it's 2 classes. And I try as much as I can to balance like one required class with one elective. That workload seems to work well for me while still getting my job done and parenting. So the advisors and your professor during 7,000 will actually specifically address this and help you work and plan for the rest of your path, which I think is one of the most amazing things about this program. So I think I wish that I had known that, I guess, but before I started, because it was very comforting to know that they were going to really help me shape going forward, especially because it's you really take that into consideration more towards the end of the semester when you have had some experience being a student again and seeing what that feels like to you. So, oh, and the other thing I would say is going forward, as much as possible, you know, reaching out to your classmates. In 7,000, this won't be the case, but in your other classes, you're going to have a mix of people in all different places within your program. So who've been there for many semesters, and they'll have knowledge about like what a certain course, the amount of work that it was, how would that balance with this course. And so really feel free to reach out to your fellow students.
No, thank y'all. Going back to the floor, do anybody else have a question, please? Next question from the floor. Well, while y'all coming up with a question, I asked one. So what do you think is the biggest challenge graduate students face? What is the biggest challenge you think graduate students face? Megan?
For me, it's been time management and like figuring out that I don't have to give like how much energy I have to give. Like I don't have to give 100% to every single task, and really just kind of navigating what being okay with doing like 70% for something, or 80%, 60%, and figuring out what that is, and then also really, 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 really integrating that you want to give yourself a lot of time for every single thing, even if the rest of your life you have done everything at the last minute. That's not going to work this time. So that has been the biggest challenge for me, but it does happen to figure it out. So
Gracie.
For me, I would say it's the school life work balance. we might touch on that a little bit later, but I thought that that was the biggest challenge, at least for me. I'm part of the master's program. I've got a graduate assistantship. I've got a job off campus. I've got friends. There's a lot going on. So I definitely think that's the biggest challenge. And the way to tackle that for me is, like what Megan said with time management. You need to be very organized with your weeks and where you choose to allocate your time. So for me, like I have one day where I don't do school, I don't do work. It's just for me to catch up on laundry, cleaning, friends, any personal stuff that I've got going on. I've got specific days where I work my off-campus job, specific days where I'm in the lab. So it's really just about time management.
Gotcha. Elizabeth?
I would say time management is probably the biggest hurdle that graduate students have. I can say with certainty it was the biggest hurdle I had as an undergraduate student returning at the age of over 40 when I went back to school. But when I went into my first graduate program, it wasn't a problem. However, coming back after a year, I had to readjust and refocus and re-navigate everything again because it's all different and it's a completely different university system from going to school in New York versus going to school in Georgia. And it took a little bit of different processes to get used to, but I also work outside of my graduate assistantship in 2 different positions and have my family.
In Georgia?
I'm going to go with time management as well. It's something that I really struggle with, and I'm a procrastinator. I'm a perfectionist also, so it's kind of a challenge that I kind of work through. I'm very ADHD, and so sometimes I'm like all over the place, but don't want to start yet because I know it has to be perfect. And so I learned something actually this week that's been like a huge epiphany for me, but it's really small and simple. And it's the idea of little victories will add up to a big victory. So I'm currently writing my thesis and I have to have 50 pages done by April. So I'm like, usually I would wait till the last minute to write something, but I can't do that with a 50-page paper. And so what I did this week is I'm like, if I get to that next page, then I'm good for that day. Like, if nothing else, at least get to the next page. And with that, I've been able to progress and get a few pages done this week because of the little daily victories. And so that's something I would encourage you guys to like try and do is be proud of yourself for the little things that you accomplish because they can add up to the big things that you accomplish.
Annalisa?
I would say, like everybody else, time management, have a plan. I'm a very person of everything's got to be on my calendar. So I will literally just put on my calendar that this block is for classwork. We technically close at 5:30, so a lot of times I'm there way late anyway. So like from 5:30 to 7, my calendar's blocked off something a couple nights a week for school or whatever. Just make sure and then hold yourself accountable, because if you let yourself off the hook one time, it's going to be a whole lot easier to let yourself off the hook the other time. And never have the mindset of, oh, I'll make it up next time, because you're just going to get yourself in a deeper hole. And just you're your own biggest critic, so be easy on yourself because you're going to mess up, so give yourself grace.
Yeah, and one thing we do find, a lot of students do struggle with the time management. So putting everything in the calendar or in the book somewhere you can see it and bring it to the forefront instead of putting it in the back really does help. And I have a question in the chat from Amber. On average, how much time should we plan to set aside for coursework? Annalisa?
I think it just all depends. Like I said, whenever I get my semester every syllabus, I kind of look at it and I like to estimate high. You can always finish early, but you don't want to be rushing. So I usually try to set my own personal goals before the syllabus goals, just to make sure, because take this lovely cyber thing, you never know what's going to happen. So get things done, especially if you have other professional lives outside of the classroom, which a lot of people do in grad school. You never know what's going to come up within your professional career. So if you have an hour or two in the middle of the day, or you have a time, take care of it. Don't waste any time. You can take a nap later, but get stuff done whenever you can.
Gotcha. And Georgia?
Sorry. I agree. I think it definitely depends. It depends on what kind of assignments you have to do per week. So looking ahead can definitely help in kind of mapping out your schedule based on what you have upcoming. If you have a larger project, make sure that you get started a couple weeks beforehand rather than the week of. If you have something that's smaller and you're aware of all of the criteria that you've got to meet, just make sure you give yourself at least a couple of days to plan ahead for that. But as for the specific time, I think it definitely depends on the person, and just kind of analyzing how you work yourself, and kind of working with that with your planners and everything.
Elizabeth?
I would agree with what everybody else pretty much said. It really depends on the person. It depends on your capacity and bandwidth for the day too. Like I need to put emphasis on that. Like you could feel burnt out today and maybe tomorrow you invest an extra hour in whatever the assignment is. But it's mapping it out and it varies based on what the assignment is and the length of the assignment. Discussion posts might not take the same amount of resources and energy as a 15. Obviously, they don't take as much time as a 5-page paper or a 10-page paper, so on and so forth.
And Gracie? And then Megan?
Yeah, again, just to kind of reiterate what everyone says, it depends on, how your week looks, how that day looks. It depends on the courses that you're taking, the type of student you are. For kind of touching back onto what Georgia said about having like the planner, what I like to do is at the beginning of the month, just take 10, 15 minutes to analyze and see what all I have going on that month, and then prioritize and plan my weeks based off that.
Okay, and Megan, I'll let you wrap it up.
Yeah, I would agree. Absolutely.
Okay.
That really is the first thing I do every semester is I get it as soon as I get this the course calendars and the syllabi, I go through with my calendar, put everything in there, because it's going to just kind of help you see where the busy times are, and how that lines up like with your family, how that lines up with your work, and then you can kind of allocate your time accordingly. And as you get into it, you're going to see, how much like energy and time each element takes you specifically, like the reading and the writing, all of that. But the one thing that I do really want to stress, and I see that Kevin mentioned it in the chat over here, is talking to your professors. Like they're here to teach, they're here to help you. And if you're finding that like a discussion post is taking as much time as a 15-page paper, like talk to them about that, because your expectations for what you're putting out there might not be aligned with what their expectations are, and you can give yourself a break. You're doing too much. It's okay. And they want this to work for you. So they're there to help make that happen and help you find the resources if you are struggling to make sure that occurs, or if you need an extension. Talking to them beforehand is so much better than having to at the very last minute talk with them or come to them afterwards. So communicate.
All right, Megan, before you go, I got another question for you. What is the hardest part of the MLIS program that you found challenging? And is there a particular class?
I think, again, that's going to be really individual to what your own strengths and interests are. I think for me, I made the mistake one semester of taking 2 of the required courses, and I really have found that the course loads are heavier for those required classes. And it might just be that the electives are things that I've like really that I'm like really interested in, so maybe it feels like less work, but that semester felt heavy. And it was some of the more technical classes, it just sort of lined up that way. It was doable, but it did take a lot more time. but again, that's me and my specific skill set. So for you, it might be completely opposite. So I wouldn't worry too much about like what somebody else says is the hardest class or things like that, because it's really going to depend on your personal journey and skills.
Gracie, I'll start this question with you. What is the best way to balance working full-time and having 2 or more classes?
For me, you definitely have to have a time management skills. I meticulously plan my weeks. My agenda is basically always with me. It's my best friend at this point. You really just have to be able to plan and know how to prioritize different things. Sometimes like an assignment will sneak up on you. You really have to be able to know when to prioritize work or when to prioritize school, because sometimes those priorities can change throughout the semester, and it's important to recognize when that is and adjust as needed.
Elizabeth?
I agree with with what Gracie said. I apologize. My throat's a little on the scratchy side today. But also I think that, like, it's really just finding the time that works best for you. So, if your work hours are a certain time and you have a certain routine, you have to find a place where everything fits in your routine to structure it and make sure that it works for you, or it's not going to, you're not going to produce your best work, and you're not going to feel like this is working for you either.
Georgia?
I think for me, it's just important to talk to the people around me, whether it be friends, if I've got schoolwork that I need to handle and it's very important and pressing at the moment, kind of going off of what Gracie was saying about kind of having knowing when to prioritize certain things. Like if you've got a deadline, you might not want to have fun right then. Maybe you should get your stuff done and then we'll do the fun later. And just knowing how to talk with the people around you and communicate when you've got to readjust maybe some of your priorities at a given time. I think that's important. And talking with your professors too, if you're having some things kind of adding up, or some things that you're struggling with, maybe something's going on in your personal life, maybe you need to talk with your professor a little bit to give them a heads up on maybe why you're not performing well. Just make sure to communicate with the people around you, and it benefits you more than it would hurt you.
And Elisa?
I echo what everybody else is saying. Just have a plan, be open to the plan not working, and be open to change, because it's kind of like in sports. The best play is a broken play. That's what I live by. So the best plan is a broken plan. So what you think is going to work is not going to work. You're going to have to figure it out, and then just be honest with yourself.
Gotcha. And Megan?
Yeah, I again, echoing what everybody else said, but also I think giving yourself grace and not, I mean, maybe changing. Like for me, I know that there's been a trade-off in my work performance while I'm in graduate school, but I know that it's because the extra time that I would put towards my job, I've had to be very clear about the boundary that like I can't do extra time right now for my work. It needs to be, for school. And with family too, when I started this, we all talked and they understood that there's going to be time where I have to get papers done, where I have to be a little bit less available, which is really hard because you want to be there, but they see me doing the schoolwork, and it kind of helps reinforce the importance of education in our family and learning, and the excitement of learning. I try and share it with my family, the things that we're talking about in class, and I do my homework when they're doing their homework, and kind of bringing my coworkers into what I'm learning, bringing my family into what I'm learning, but then really making sure that I have space to do it. So a lot of times I do end up staying like at work, like I'll work until 7, and then I know from 7 to 9, I'm going to stay at work and do my schoolwork. And then when I'm home, I'm just doing home stuff. And that way I'm not doing a little bit here, a little bit there. That just, I found, has not worked for me. But I do the first few semesters, give yourself that grace.
We have a question from Myrna. And we have a question on the floor from Myrna.
Okay, I'm Meredith. Hey, so I'm going into the MLIS program, and I've been out of school for 8 years. I really didn't have to use Zoom and technology like this during COVID, so I'm a little nervous about taking courses fully online, asynchronous. So I'm just wondering, did y'all find it difficult to learn how to navigate the different online platforms? And was there sort of a grace period as you were learning? What was your experience?
Okay, I start with Megan.
Yeah, it wasn't hard. I feel like once you get into it, it's going to make more sense. It's hard when you're not doing it to really like make sense of it. So once you start, I think you'll find that it's fairly easy to navigate. It's just make sure you put the time into doing it. I think there are some tutorials available. Oh, actually, probably not right now because of the technical issues, but there are tutorials about navigating BlazeView. I would go ahead and do that once it's up. I'm trying to remember. Everything really is the hard. There's usually tutorials for anything you're going to need to access. And again, if you are finding any sort of challenge, reach out to the professors. There's usually discussions, like an area in the discussions that are for general questions. And you can say, am I finding everything? Has anybody found something hidden that I haven't found? Like ways to make sure that you are seeing everything everybody else is seeing.
Gracie.
So for me, I'm fully in person with the biology department. So I'm going to go ahead and pass this on to the other panelists.
Okay.
I think I'll be able to answer that a little bit better.
Got you. Elizabeth.
I apologize. I was trying to answer a question in the chat.
No problem.
Can you just restate the question? I apologize.
Oh, that's okay. So I guess I've just never taken online classes, especially being asynchronous. I'm just wondering, did it take you very long to learn to navigate the different online platforms? And yeah, that's my question.
Okay, so the first platform that I had was not complicated because it was all through email. So when everything started coming into play for Brightspace came into play somewhere around like 2021. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. And it was a little bit of a challenge to navigate, but once you understand where everything is and how to use it, it's really, it's not an overly complicated system, and it is very user friendly. So just take your time and do, use the resources that are available for you for the navigation portion. And if you have questions or concerns outside of the tutorial, there are other people that can help you. And the online programs themselves, that's really, your accountability is going to be the strongest portion of the online program. If you're not accountable for yourself, it's not, to do the assignments and stuff like that, that might become a bigger challenge.
Georgia, you have anything?
The big thing that I would say just with online classes is make sure to reach out to your professors if you're unable to locate anything, or if you want to talk to them. Many times the professor will meet with you over Teams or something like that, which is really helpful when you have specific questions.
Annalisa?
Yeah, I would say, so I was an undergrad a long time ago, and that was my biggest concern coming back, was learning how to use the different types of technology. And it's pretty simple. It's very user friendly. And like everybody said, if you have any questions, there's tons of resources to help you out. They're there. That's their job. So let them do their job and let them help you do yours.
Hey, thank you. Meredith, thank you so much for your question. Do you have any more? Are you good? Okay, I have another question from the chat. For the speakers, is there anything students should expect to change or prepare for with regards to writing graduate level papers and assignments compared to undergraduate? Was it more intense, difficult, any difference in approaching them? Annalisa?
For me, I was a math major in undergrad, so I didn't really do papers. So I can't really speak too much to that. So I just had to learn how to write graduate level papers. I will say find a personal resource somewhere to help you. Luckily, I have a couple faculty members at Valdosta State that actually helped me with mine and helped me learn the process a little bit. So if you have somebody there's tons of people that know what they're doing. I will say everything I wrote in high school was MLA, so switching to APA was a little bit, that was the biggest change, I think. But once you get the hang of it, it's not that bad. And ask questions. You'd rather ask questions than do it wrong, especially if it's something simple.
Georgia?
For me, the papers got longer. That was pretty much the biggest change, that we jumped from the expectation of being like 7 to 8 pages to about 15. Also, there's more theory, but I'm in literature, and that's going to depend on the major as to what you're doing when it comes to writing. But just make sure to remember that there are people at the Academic Support Center that can help you with your papers and with like being an extra set of eyes, because I always tell my students and people that I tutor to get a second opinion, a second or third. Honestly, the more eyes you can get on your paper, the more kind of feedback you can work with and decide from there what you want and don't want to take. Because at the end of the day, you're the author. But yeah, papers just got longer mostly and more theory.
Elizabeth?
From viewing things from the master's to the doctoral level, the writing is a lot more complicated and it is much heavier. I would say that the master's program is much easier, in my honest opinion. It is harder from the undergraduate level, though, and I will say this with certainty: do reach out for help if you're struggling with your citations, because citations are something in this university that they're very, very strict about. No joke, they're very strict about your references and your citations for, ensuring that you're not plagiarizing documents or anything like that. So, if you need help with whatever citation format you're using, whether it's MLA, APA, I don't know if this university uses Chicago, but I can tell you with certainty that, you want to become proficient in it. And with the graduate assistantship that I have, working with the teacher education program, it has enhanced my APA skills beyond what they were when I was a master's student. So I'm very appreciative to that learning curve and increasing my ability to use it without fearing that I make mistakes.
Gracie?
So for me, being in the biology department, we don't write as many papers as those in the English department. But from the assignment standpoint, it definitely gets more complex. You have to do your assignments at a more thorough level. For biology, there's a lot of classes where the master's and the undergrad courses are integrated, so we'll be taking the same class. But as a master's student, you'll either have, additional assignments that you need to complete, or your assignments will have more parts to it to where it has to be done more in depth.
Megan?
It was really, really long time ago when I was writing undergraduate papers. And I just personally, I know my own expectations are different. But yeah, mostly it's really like the research and the citations. That level is definitely elevated. So that's where I feel the difference.
So what are steps they need to be taken on the What steps need to be taken to be on the right track during your first year? Megan.
Sorry, say the question one more time.
What steps need to be taken to be on the right track your first year?
Well, I feel like a lot of it we've covered, like, really, when you get that syllabus, and you get the calendar, read them closely. Yeah, careful reading skills gets me into trouble still sometimes. So definitely do that first thing. And then, starting exploring the technology, like Meredith was talking about, really getting comfortable with that. I also really want to give a plug for Odom Library and their site through Valdosta. There's so many resources, and the librarians and the library staff there are phenomenal, and they're a resource for you and are available to help in so many ways. So connecting there. And then another step I would say is, if you utilize social media in any ways, look on them for Valdosta specific groups, and for your specific study, look for groups that address those as well. I know there's an MLIS one on Facebook and a few different places, and it's just a great way to connect with peers for that peer support. Because for the online students, it's not as natural, but it's a really critical component to, at least for me, being successful through this program, being able to help one another. So I would say that, and then, yeah, figuring out whatever else you need to be successful in terms of storage, computers, all of those things, making sure you have access to those.
Gracie.
So what helped me be successful during my first semester in my first year is really just getting organized. You have to know what's going on, or else you will not be successful. You have to know, like I said earlier, you have to know when to prioritize things. That really just kind of ties back into time management. You have to know what you need to get done when you need to get it done. You have to know how much time you can allocate towards a certain project or an assignment, or work or anything else you have going on. It's really just being able to organize yourself and organize your time. And then also just talk to your classmates, see what they're doing. Try out a few different things, because you might have something that worked for you in your undergrad or your master's that might not work for you anymore in a different program.
Good. Thank you. Elizabeth?
I agree with what everybody else said. We've covered so much of it, time management, making sure that you trust yourself and trust the process. Sometimes process isn't clear, but trust me, just trust the process. And reach out for help. There's a plethora of resources, like everybody said. The one thing that I would also suggest is don't put so much on your plate that you feel you need to be everywhere all at the same time either. So if you were an undergrad student who is used to participating in this club or doing this thing or doing that thing, and you're finding that oh, I'm spread too thin, then take a couple of things off your plate to ensure that you get your work done and make it work for you. That's the other thing. We talk about in education, and Dr. Ruttencutter will be able to understand this one really, meeting people where they are is a huge part of education, but now you have to meet yourself where you're at. So it's not the school meeting you 100%, you have to meet yourself.
And Georgia?
One thing that I encourage everyone to do during their first year is to look at what your program's expectations are for you during your last semester, because whether it be an internship or a thesis or an examination or something along those lines, you don't want to just be blindsided all of a sudden and realize, oh goodness, I've got to prepare for this. So just make sure you know what options are available for you for your final projects / internships or whatever it is for your program, because it'll be helpful for you to prepare for that during your subsequent years leading up to your graduation.
Annalisa?
I would say decide what goals you want out of it. professionally and personally, write them down somewhere, whether that's on the note app on your phone, the journal you keep, whatever, and then just kind of reflect back on those, especially whenever you get discouraged. Look at the end goal and why are you here? What do you want out of this? What is your ultimate goal in getting this degree, and how is it going to help you and propel you forward personally and professionally? Because obviously you're going to learn things professionally, but you're going to learn more about yourself personally as you dig deep in your educational journey. And just know, keep a journal, and whenever you have those tough times, reflect back on it and learn from it. You're going to learn as much from the classes about the non-subject matter than you are the subject matter.
Yeah, true. Next question. How do you handle school work-life balance? Annalisa.
Well, I get told that I don't really have that, so I might not be the best person to ask that. But for me, just like I said, blocking things out on my calendar, making sure that I have time for myself. Don't cancel those plans on a friend because you didn't do what you were supposed to do. Hold yourself accountable and just kind of make time for yourself, because if not, you're going to get bogged down and then your schoolwork's going to suffer and things outside of school are going to suffer. So take care of what you can control, which is your academics and stuff like that. You can control your effort. You can't control outside things. So that would be my advice.
Georgia.
Just make sure you do leave space for fun, because school can get overwhelming sometimes and you get kind of bogged down with doing everything and trying to meet expectations, but you got to make sure that you have some of that space to be able to have a breather for a second, because you're not going to perform as well in your academics if you're kind of bogged down all the time. And burnout is real. And it's easy to get there when you don't make space for some of the fun as well. So I think how you get there is kind of dependent on you, whether you're a calendar keeper or whether you kind of just know what you got to do. So you got to kind of work around it, which is more what I fall into sometimes. But just kind of figure that out by analyzing how you work best. And then, just make space for your fun and your academics. Not that your academics can't be fun, because they can too.
Elizabeth?
Work-life balance. I really struggle with this sometimes, but I've managed to make it through. In the first semester, I remember seeing an assignment that I missed, apparently the second part of, and I lost it and thought that it was going to be late. And then, unfortunately, the hurricane hit. And so my assignment got pushed back and there was a little bit of a sigh of relief, but I put so much pressure on myself to get it done that I got it done and still turned it in at the original due date, just because that's the person that I am. But I do block out time for my family and not just work. I ensure that I have at least some type of fun activity that my kids get to do once a week, because if they're not having fun, there will be no fun in my household. And there will be no time for me to work. So we have to find that balance for everybody. It's not just for me.
Gracie.
I think a big part of it is being able to set boundaries with yourself. You have to know when you need to allocate time, this is my school time, this is when I have to go to work, this is when I'm scheduled, this is when I need to be with my family, and knowing it's okay to say no to some things. It's actually very important to say no to some things. I'm a younger student, so I have a lot of friends in their undergrad still, so they want to go out to these parties and these hangouts, these get-togethers, and you have to say no sometimes. But with that, it is important to make time for those social engagements, or else you're going to feel disconnected. So it really is just about finding that balance with yourself, with your friends, with your work. You just kind of have to play around with it and see what works best for you and what all you have time for.
Megan.
Yeah, I agree 100% with what everybody said. And for me, it's really being intentional about making sure I have time each week to be with my family, to be with my friends, to do something fun for myself. Because if I'm not, it's the first thing that I lose. And then I do go into burnout, and then it's bad everywhere. So I do feel like you asked the question about setting yourself up in the first semester for success. I think that is a piece of it, about being really intentional about that.
Do we have any?
It's not easy.
Do we have any questions from the floor before I take a question from the chat? Questions from the floor? Okay, the chat. So what item or physical object help you through graduate school? And any tips or tricks are welcome. So what physical object / item help you through grad school, and any tips or tricks? Megan.
I learned that I am a physical calendar person. I need to visually see everything from all the spheres in one place, to really make it all work, all the different pieces. So that has been the biggest help for me. And then also, I do end up printing out a lot of like the articles and things like that we read. If we're not reading from a book, then I like to have it in front of me. And so having a system that collects those printouts and I know where to access them, having some sort of receptacle that works for you. That's what helped me.
Gracie.
Like Megan, I am also a physical calendar girly. I need my months planned, my weeks planned, my days planned. But something I've also found very helpful is noise canceling headphones, lo-fi music. I have a very hard time focusing when I'm listening to a song with lyrics, but I also can't focus if it's quiet. So finding those lo-fi YouTube videos really, really helped me out.
Yes, I learned about them last year. They really do come in handy. Elizabeth.
In this portion of grad school, doctoral versus master's, I've found that having digital copies of my books is much easier for referencing, highlighting, and being able to find the page, because all you have to do is like quick search things instead of like going to the index and going back. The research, I would say, is much more intense as a graduate student. It's obviously much more intense the higher you go. So just putting that out there, like the master's level, it does have higher expectancies in undergrad, but it's not the same level as the next level up. And make sure that, you know, when you're looking at research, that it's peer reviewed.
Yes, that makes a difference, especially with research. Georgia.
Okay, I have two. My first one, if this is not feasible for you, then there are other options available. But my iPad has been like a huge help to me throughout my my master's program. I didn't have it during undergrad. I got it right after I graduated because I thought it might be helpful for grad school. And I take my notes on there, and I'm saving so much paper because I take a lot of notes and I'm writing a lot. And so being able to have that and not have to carry another book too, because I've got a lot of books as a literature person, it's been really helpful. And then also reusable earplugs have helped me too. I struggle with focus. And so recently I invested in some earplugs, and they've been so helpful whenever I just can't handle everything around me and I need to focus up on my school stuff. That's also a good option if you're not feeling like listening to music that day. So those are my two.
Annalisa.
iPad. I got one, and it's what I take everything on, notes. I use everything electronic that's possible, and then I have everything stored on there electronically. Get you a good place that you know where you can keep everything. For me, it is on my iPad, or there's a certain spot in my office where all of my school stuff is. Otherwise, you're going to misplace something, especially if you work full time. You're going to put some schoolwork in with something else that you need, and you're going to sit down in a meeting and be like, this isn't the paper I needed, or you're going to go home to do an assignment and you'll have the wrong thing. So just make sure that you have a system, and that as much as you can, electronic is just the easiest way. And like I said, the iPad and the Apple Pencil has been my favorite.
What opportunities should you take advantage of as a graduate student? Annalisa.
If you're local, no, Dr. DeCruz already put this, but graduate assistantships, they're huge if there's a way for you to get one. If you're remote, then just find something that you can hands-on in your professional field. I know I actually have a couple graduate assistants that work for me, and them getting that experience is just very hands-on. They're already learning how to be professional in different environments. Just finding your group of people, whatever opportunities give you. Professors ask you to do something. If you can say yes, say yes. Look for reasons to say yes, not reasons to say no, to take advantage of as many opportunities as are given to you, and just explore the doors until they get shut.
Georgia.
AGS, join AGS. We've got a lot of cool things we've been doing. Last semester, we had Dr. DeCruz come in and talk about kind of the upcoming symposium, some other opportunities that are out there for grad students. We did some crochet nights. We did a game night that was available for both online and in-person students. We're trying to make things more accessible for our online students so that everybody has a space to connect with others. This upcoming semester, we're going to have Mr. Tim Golden, former senator and House of Representative member who fought for VSU to have regional status, come and kind of talk about the school coming to be a university. And we're going to be doing maybe some karaoke nights. We're going to do all kinds of fun things, and we're trying to make it accessible for everyone online as well. So if you want to connect with other graduate students, both within and outside of your program, definitely get involved with AGS. We have monthly meetings, and I'll be putting more information in our AGS group chat or group me. I'll insert the link again. I think someone already put it in there once, but yeah.
Elizabeth.
Is it gonna work? Okay. Sorry, my computer is just acting very wonky for whatever reason right now. I'm waiting for a new one to come because this one is very laggy and slow. But I would say take advantage of what suits you best. If you want to be in student government in your local, and that's something that piques your interest, go do it. The graduate assistantships are very, very beneficial. As I stated before, not only did I become more well-versed in APA format, I also gained a lot of insight in how to effectively communicate revisions and, ways to change your paper and enhance the way it reads and the way that, to make it more academic to the master students. And it's a much different track being able to do that versus being on the other end, the reception end. But it's very hard to know where the line is sometimes on what to say. So you're kind of like, how does this get received? And you have to, work on that. And it was a process, but it's definitely an experience that enhances you for going into, the profession that you're going to take too.
Gracie.
I'm just gonna, reemphasize the graduate assistantships. It can give you a different perspective with what you're working on. It's going to be very biology specific, so I'm sorry if you're not, a STEM student. But in biology, you have lab work and then you have field work. For my thesis, I'm entirely in the lab. I have no need to be in the field at all. But with my assistantship, that is all field work. So I'm still able to have that experience, even though it's not a part of my thesis, so that I'm a more well-rounded biologist. Something else that you can do is look into which professors are teaching your courses. In the biology department, there are certain professors that are more willing to do additional research with students. And for one of the classes I took, I'm hopefully, fingers crossed, going to be leaving the degree with 2 additional publications because I decided to take this course with this certain professor as opposed to a different one. So definitely do some research into the professors that are teaching these courses because they might have some additional opportunities for you that you might not have if you took it with a different professor.
Megan?
Definitely, I agree with like the networking and peer support. In your classes, usually the first thing you do is kind of talk about who you are, where you're from, and you'll see they're probably, even though we're from all over, there's usually a few people that are not that far away. And like even where I am, we've had opportunities to get together, which is so fun. And that's so great for networking too, because like right now there's a position open at my library, and I was able to share that with the people in my program. And the people that I've connected with from the program. So definitely as any opportunities that you can to do that, whether it's conferences or locally or online, take those opportunities. And I think I didn't realize when I started how much was available to us as online students. Like I think I thought like a lot of the student government, all those different things were sort of not accessible to me. And it wasn't until I was a little farther in that I was like, oh, I can participate in this. I can participate in that. So just paying attention and not assuming that something's not out of reach for you. And I also would suggest looking at scholarships, continuing to look at scholarships, especially at the start of your program, because I know at least for MLIS, there's some ALA scholarships that are only available when you have completed less credits. So like as you complete more credits, you lose some of those opportunities. So just kind of staying on top of what's out there. Oh, one more thing, VSU, through VSU, there's free access to the Headspace app, which is really helpful for like kind of mindfulness and meditation. And it helps me slow down this brain sometimes, so.
Okay, and I also posted in the chat a link to our Qualtrics survey. So please leave feedback so we can improve with future sessions. All you do is click the link and it'll take you to the Qualtrics survey, and it should take about 3 to 4 minutes to complete. So please take the time and complete that survey. And also before we go, I'd like to thank our student panelists. Thank you so much. Y'all was extraordinary. Oh, sorry. I guess we won't do that no more. See, still try to get used to technology. So thank y'all so much. I really appreciate your time. Y'all did an awesome job. Before we go, Becky, you have anything to wrap us up?
Well, great panelists. You all did fabulous. Thank you for sharing your experiences with everyone. I love listening to all of your advice. It's really great advice. I do have a welcome packet that I'm going to be sharing with everyone. One of our AGS officers created it, and so I'll email it out to all of you so that you've got that handy. But also, it'll be posted on our website, the Graduate School Grad Student Resources page. So thank you. I hope you have a fabulous semester. If you have questions, please let us know. We're here to help.
All right. Thank y'all so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. And thank you, Graduate Student Success Subcommittee. I also appreciate y'all. All right. Good luck, everyone, with the semester. See you later.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
What does it say? It says, well, using the app allow all it's like it says off. It's like it says stop. But it says